man of the hour, Mr. Cameron Saaiman here next to me. How's it going, Cam?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. I know you've got a very busy schedule. We've been chatting about it. I know you're resting.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, how's things been in Cape Town so far for you?
it's absolutely amazing. We actually got to enjoy the waterfront today, and I've been here once or twice before, so it's been really amazing to actually just enjoy some good company, some good food here, and we're actually in Stellenbosch as well, so it's a lot of fun. We've been hitting the wine farms and the restaurants. I think that's my guilty pleasure after a fight is just having a lot of food. So
Nice.
getting to enjoy that.
Did you get a chance to experience the Stellies nightlife yet, or is that still coming?
Not yet. To be honest, usually by like 9 o'clock, I'm tired. So,
Really?
yeah, I'm really bad at the nightlife, but I think I'll make that a priority. So I'm still here for like 6 7 days. So I think we need to try and do that as
No,
well.
100%, dude.
Yeah.
I went to Stellies as well, so like I've
Yeah.
had a bit of an experience with it. You got to
Yes.
just at least, you'll probably be coming down a couple more times, but you got to
Yeah.
experience it at least once or twice.
I think so, yeah. So far it's been great, but everything has been in the daytime. So by the
Mm,
time it gets dark, I get very tired.
yeah.
So yeah, and I think it's just that sleep, that very strict sleep schedule we have in camp.
hmm
It takes a while to not get used to that
Mm.
anymore. Yeah.
What type of sleep schedule are you on then in camp?
So usually in camp, we really try and focus on getting at least 8 hours of proper sleep. Before that, we try and kill screen time as well.
Okay.
So I would usually, so what we actually try and do is screen time should be cut off by 9 o'clock,
hmm
in bed by 10 and up at 6.
Okay.
But with how my training was structured for this camp specifically, I did that a little bit sooner. So just after about 8:30, I tried to cut most of my screen time. I don't
Mm.
always get it right because
It's tough.
everything is also just technologically. So if you
Yeah.
want to plan anything, it's just either on a laptop, a phone, or whatever. And usually by 9 o'clock, just after 9, I would pass out. So yeah.
I'm sure as well it's easier for you to get to sleep when you're in camp because as you ramp things up, you're more tired and you need that recovery a lot more, right?
100%, 100%. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we've done anywhere between 3 to 5 hours of training.
Wow.
And then we also have other stuff after that, like business meetings. We give class as well, stuff like that. So by the time we get home in the evenings, we're quite
Pretty
dead.
buggered.
Yeah.
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 How much of you mentioned the business, like as you obviously now getting your name out there, you've been well known in South Africa for a number of years. How much of your day is actually taken up by business meetings and business opportunities, stuff outside of the Octagon, if you want to call it that?
That's a great question. A big part of my focus and a big passion project, if you can call it that, is our Little Legends MMA program. So I spend a lot of time focusing on building that program. So we have 4 locations, including Team CIT. So we have about, in between the 4 locations, we have about 80 to 90 students.
Wow.
And we really focus on building the program into a structure where they can really, after that, go into our high school classes at CIT, and then after that, level 1s and level 2s of amateurs we have at CIT as well. And after that, obviously, they can go to the pro team. So really having this almost structured timeline of if you are 6 7 years old, we're not going to put any pressure on you, but
100%.
we have these structures in place for if you have the talent, you work hard, you do the competitions from a young age, you're going to have a home every single time, no matter what age you are. You'll be able to adapt to a program, and it's a CIT program. So really focusing on that is a massive part. And then the second part also that takes a lot of time is versus promotions. We really are looking to be the next up and coming promotion in South Africa as well. And I think we've proven that with our amateur events. So we really try and do next level events for our amateurs. And yeah, that's between those two, that takes quite a lot of time.
I think it's cool that you guys are doing both of those, because I've posed this question to a lot of my guests, like Don Madge, Mike from PFA, to Riku,
Yeah.
like what is it going to take for South African MMA to get put on the map? I mean, obviously you and Dricus are doing great work.
Yeah.
And but then if you compare it to like in the US, you can fight every weekend basically.
Yeah.
And they've all given me a similar or the same answers, like grassroots.
Yes.
And that's exactly what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And like you say, the people have no pressure.
Yeah.
And they don't have to force anything, get rushed into something too soon. There's a very nice mapped out timeline. And then when they are ready for amateur fights, you've got versus promotions, the next step. I think that's awesome.
Definitely. I think as well, we are very thankful for almost smaller type of events where the guys get to build their record, because if we have these guys on our cards, we preferably want them to have records already. And just like our events cost a lot of money to host, so we want to bring the best talent out of South Africa, especially for the amateurs, and we want them to face each other and obviously then try and build their ranks there. And as an amateur, I fought at GFC, I fought at Fight Stars as well, and without those what you will consider smaller events, I wouldn't have entered the EFC, and without the EFC I wouldn't be in the UFC. So it's just being grateful for having those small events. I know there's a lot of amateurs that like almost pull up their noses because there's not flashing lights, and there's not always
Really?
that. It's just a thing of like they want the show as well, and that's good. That's good. You need to be able to perform under that, but you first need to pay your dues before you get to fight in front of the bright lights.
Yeah,
So,
most definitely.
yeah.
Speaking of which, you just came back off of another bright lights performance on an amazing card. I mean, to fight on UFC 285 under John Jones, under the big lights, proverbial big lights. What was that like, dude? Just being on that card.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. I had the honor of being on a big card in December, so I was like, okay, not much is gonna top that. And then I don't know which was, I think my fight got announced first. So I got UFC 285, you're fighting, and you're fighting, like Dricus is fighting on that card as well. So we were like, good to go. And then I think maybe 1 or 2 days after, they signed Jones and Gone.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't believe it. Obviously John Jones is one of my best ever, and top 3 personally for me. Like I'm a massive fan of George St. Pierre, but first and second for me are those two, John Jones and GSP. So it was a massive honor getting to share the card with him. We got those cool posters we got to sign, so those are going up on the podcast studio as well.
Nice.
But yeah, just the magnitude of the event, and you could see how big the event was in fight week. When we got to Vegas, we got there like 12 days before fight night. It was still quiet. Fight week, it was madness. That whole city was alive. It was vibing. I was again just at 9 o'clock I was in bed, but
probably too excited to sleep.
Yeah, but it was absolutely amazing to be part of that amazing card. Yeah.
Did you get the chance? I saw Dricus got the chance to meet John Jones. Did you get the chance to meet him?
I did not get the chance to meet. I saw him. And at weigh-ins, he was actually just sitting in front of us, but you don't want to go and bother him just while he's in the mindset. But he was actually just like walking up and down, and he was greeting people, and he was all smiles and stuff. So I got to see him like as close as we are, but I didn't really get to meet him. So but there'll be enough time.
I'm sure
we'll meet each other.
Next time he'll probably come up to you and be like, "Hey, dude, you're Cameron Saaiman. Nice to meet you."
That would be sick, but I'll be the biggest fangirl ever.
Really?
So yeah.
Do you think you get nervous if you see him? I mean, like, how did you feel?
100%. I think my biggest fanboy moment, and every single time it's the same reaction. It's like when Joe Rogan comes to interview me.
All right.
Then I'm like, It's Joe
Oh
Rogan.
shit!
I
Don't say
can't
anything
believe it. So
stupid.
you can even see it on the videos where in my debut, like I put my hand on his arm and I was thinking as I'm speaking, I'm like, I'm not gonna let you go. Like I'm just
Hmm.
like, I can't believe I'm touching Joe Rogan. So
Yeah.
it is a quite surreal, it's a surreal thing being there and getting to see all these guys. We got to see Connor as well.
Oh
We
yeah.
got to see um, some of the biggest stars just be there. I got to see David Goggins. I'm a massive fan of him.
Mm.
I actually just finished his book just before we went there. So I try and finish at least one book in camp.
Hmm.
And I finished his Can't Hurt Me book. And that was absolutely amazing. So getting to see him as well. But I should actually just stop being so wimpy and just ask the guys for photos as well.
Yeah,
So
for sure, man. I
yeah,
mean, it again. Being starstruck, it can just. I mean, just I don't know what I would say if I saw
yeah,
Conor McGregor. I mean,
yeah,
I would be like, do I go up to him?
yeah.
Like, do I stand
It's
back? Like,
yeah, it's just like massive fan, and that's
yeah,
really all you can say. So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be cool and ask questions and be like,
100%.
are you in the event and
Yeah.
then that kind of thing. But are they like, what is the scene behind the scenes like? I'm sure it's quite chaotic in any event. Like you can't just walk
Yeah.
up to people probably because there's probably a lot of people want to meet
Exactly.
them.
Yeah. Guys like Jones had a whole posse with him the whole
Mm,
time. So it's really you also don't want to intrude, but someone like Connor, he's there with his family and he has private security and he has all these people swarming him the moment he enters the building, and that's not public people. That's just like fighters and teammates.
yeah.
So that's backstage. So it's already like a closed group of people, and even them are just swarming him. So
Mm,
it is quite a weird, it's very weird, and obviously if they are in public it's just next level. Those
mm,
guys, fans are kind of crazy. So it is it's weird to see that, but it's very cool because now you're there.
mm.
You are part of this historic event, and yeah, Drixus and I, we got it done, so that's awesome.
Yeah, you guys definitely got it done, dude. Your performance in particular was just so smooth, dude. I
Thanks.
mean, like there's you can see you started training MMA at a young age
Mm,
and you did MMA specific. It
yeah,
wasn't like jiu-jitsu and then to this to that because
yeah,
it's like when you go from stand up to the clinch to ground to like it's just so smooth. There's like no stop in between. It
yeah,
just flows perfectly.
yeah. Thanks, I appreciate that.
But be honest, dude, were you nipping in that fight after the point got taken away
Yeah.
and then the eye poke happened? Because I was nipping for you, dude.
I was just like, I was, when the point got taken away, I just told myself, man, not again. Not because like I might lose the fight. It was 100%. I do not want to be labeled as a dirty fighter,
Right.
and you can literally see in my face, you can see in my shoulders. I just like shrug. I'm just like, did this really happen again?
Mm,
And I was just like, I was so down in the dumps for that 1 second, and then I
mm,
was like, okay, let's get back into it. You need to be present. You need
mm,
to win this fight. And then when the eye poke happened, like after the fight as well, my corner said, listen, if that eye poke didn't happen, you would have gotten the finish. And it was, and I watching the fight back, that's true.
yeah.
We were so aggressive going forward. We were
Mm,
landing shots, we were landing combos, not just one shot. We were landing multiple shots, and then the eye poke happened. And watching that fight back was just like it. I would have if I just
yeah.
kept on pressing the pedal, I would have finished that fight.
Mm,
And but at the end of the day, coulda, woulda, shoulda. It's one of those things. I got a lot of guys that say I'm a dirty fighter.
mm.
Next fight, I'm gonna pull guard. And
There's
I'm
no
not,
chance of a
I'm,
low blow.
I'm
There's no
not,
chance of anything.
I'm not throwing a single punch. I'm pulling guard and I'm just hugging the guy for 3 rounds.
A
So
Minari roll into his leg and
yeah,
just
I'm
yeah.
gonna go for the dark arts of ankle locks.
Exactly, man. Yeah, it's unfortunate because I mean, and people were booing afterwards because
Mm,
it's just one of those things. That's what they've seen so far.
yeah,
They don't know like from everybody that's spoken or asked like they asked Rikus afterwards about it as
yeah,
well, and like everybody that knows you, um, and that's close to you was just saying like it's so sad actually because you're like one of the nicest guys and obviously it's not
yeah,
intentional.
yeah,
So I think if you just keep, I mean, you've obviously got your team
yeah,
probably saying something similar, but people will eventually see you're not a dirty fighter. I
Yeah.
mean, people thought John Jones was a dirty fighter for the longest time, and where's he now?
Yeah.
So
Well, if you, it's just easy, and I said it in the post fight speech as well. You know, like you can take 2 groin kicks for every pound you lose weight, and just like. No, like hats off to him. He was super tough. But if you look at the body of work we did in that fight, we threw a lot of significant strikes.
Oh, yeah.
We attempted a lot of strikes. It was a chaotic fight. Mana Martinez came in with a good pace. He came in with also a lot of volume. So mistakes are bound to happen. And but at the end of the day, we were supposed to win every single round on the judges' scorecards, and then the point deduction happened. After that, we went 10-9, and after that, we went 10-8 on 2 of the judges' scorecards.
yeah,
So there's no question in my mind I was the better fighter on the night, and we got to show that as well. Technically, I was very happy with the fight. I
Yeah.
was happy with how we got to mix up the stuff. There's a long list of stuff that we need to fix, but I'm looking forward to the next camp, because now we are honing in that type of mentality and type of technical ability we want to showcase, and we'll just do that better the next time.
Is that something I know? After in the post-fight speech in the Octagon, I think even, but definitely in the press conference area, you said like one of the first things you're going to do is go back and relook at that fight and evaluate and make changes and critique and everything.
Yeah.
Have you done that yet? And is that something that you do like straight after the fight, like straight away?
Yeah, I do that on the plane back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I have a lot of time, obviously, on
Yeah.
on a 16-hour flight back from Newark to here. So I watched it a few times. I take a lot of notes, and usually Coach watches it as well, and he has a few notes, and Coach Henny as well. So we'll sit around the table, watch it again together once I'm back, and then we'll compare notes as well. So sometimes there's something that I might miss or he might miss, and then we'll have a in-depth discussion about exactly that. And yeah, so we were joking, you know, I sent Henny a photo of me watching the fight, and I said, you know, I'm starting to take my notes, and number 1 is no more groin strikes, and his reply is number 1 should be no more fouls at all. And I was just like, okay, that's a good one. You know, that's so obviously that is number 1. But in terms of the stuff we did right, you know, I think our pace was amazing. Conditioning was great, you know, fitness was there. Power needs a lot of work. I got the knockdown, but I should have knocked him clean out. And that's, you know, sometimes I chase that in fights as well, and that sometimes costs me finishes. But we'll look to improve that with the next one.
How do you, when you say power, is it about timing your shots more, or is it something that you develop as you get older? Is it, because I've heard a lot of people say you're born with power, with knockout power.
Yeah.
So are you looking at working your timing, or what is it exactly?
I think timing is a massive thing. Sometimes, like in a lot of sparring sessions, I can feel like my timing is not there. We always joke about that old man strength. Like at a certain age,
Dan Henderson strength.
Yeah, you just get it, and usually that's not at 22 years old. So
yeah, you're not remotely an old man yet.
Yeah, so we'll definitely look to, you know, improve on the timing. Improve on punch technique, because if we can fix those two, it doesn't matter how hard you punch. I think if you can connect cleanly and you can do that effectively, you know, we'll be able to finish the guys that are ahead of us. So I think that is just going to be a massive focus going forward. But luckily, I have such a great team. You know, I have a great strength and conditioning coach. I have a great mental coach. My head coach is amazing. So we'll figure it out. It's like a little puzzle we're building now. So, yeah.
And little bits will come on as your journey goes. I just want to track back a second quickly, because, you know, in South Africa, when you're a kid, your sports you choose, usually it's like either rugby or cricket or one of the conventional sports. What made you decide to be like, I want to go fight?
Well, that was the thing. I was actually speaking to a few people about that. All I wanted to do was play rugby, obviously, like most Afrikaans.
In Pretoria.
In Pretoria, you know, everyone wants to be a blue ball. Everybody wants to play for the Springboks. It's just since I was a kid, I wanted to be a sports. I wanted to do something in sports, and for the longest while, you had these heroes. Like mine was Furi de Priya.
Hmm.
I was a scrummy. I was a small kid as well, and Brian Abana, just because he
Mm.
was so mad quick, and there was a video of him racing a cheetah. So
Yes, I remember that.
it
Yeah.
was just like I had these heroes, and I looked up to them. So for the longest time, it was rugby, and then I tried all the other sports. I played cricket. I mostly did that for the hot dogs you get afterwards.
Yeah.
I did swimming. I just sank like a rock. That was terrible. I was,
Mm.
I always make the joke, I'm literally not good at anything else, than
Really.
fighting. But it's just from the age of 12, after watching my first UFC fight, uh, where my father was a sound engineer for Carnival City,
Okay.
and I just happened to be there one day because
Mm.
I didn't either it was holiday or I didn't want to go to school, but I just happened to be there. I
Mm.
wasn't there for the event, and the EFC was on, and he was just like, "Go watch the fights. You're bothering me." so,
Nice.
watched a few of the fights, and then I was absolutely hooked. I was
Mm.
just like, "This is sick."
Mm.
Like the crowds were rough. It was just like, and this is what 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes, so, um, and then I started idolizing these guys. It's like super tough, super fit athletes that work very hard and that go out there and hit each other in front of 3,000-4,000 people.
Mm.
So, and then that's where the transition happened. So I was like, I want to do that, and my parents didn't take it seriously, so they were like, find a gym and then we'll do it. I didn't have a phone at that stage, so I was riding my bicycle in Pretoria looking for a gym,
Wow.
riding in Garsfontein area
Yeah.
and Morletta Park, and all those, just like physically looking for something. Found a karate gym and I was like, I don't want to do that.
Mm.
That looks dumb. So, and then I just happened to find Fighting Fit, which was a kickboxing gym at that stage, and that's basically where I trained. And I don't know if you know Cole Henning.
The name sounds familiar,
So
but
he recently fought for a UFC lightweight title fight. He
yes,
unfortunately lost that fight, but
yes.
brilliant athlete, and he's one of the guys that basically took me under his wing
Hmm.
once I started kickboxing. After doing kickboxing for about 3 weeks, I entered my first tournament, which was,
Seriously.
yeah, it was super quick, but they were just like, yeah, go try it.
Well,
And
did you just have a knack for it, or was it just
I,
like they
I
wanted someone to enter?
I think once I know when I started kickboxing, it was in holiday. So I literally, like I said, nothing else to do. So
Right.
in the mornings, I remember there was a 9 a.m. Cardio class. So at 8, I would jog there. I would warm up, do the 9 a.m. Then after that, there was like a weird
Yeah.
Pilates class. I was like, sure, let me do that as well. Now that I think of it, I was just most of the time bored.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to train. And then started doing the kids, the afternoon kids class, the senior classes in the evenings, and then the MMA classes late at night.
Mm.
And that was literally my holiday schedule. So after 3 weeks, we got to enter a kickboxing tournament. I took bronze, cried my eyes out, got my ass kicked, and that's how we start,
Sure.
basically.
And
Yeah.
then, how long were you there before you met up with your current team now?
So I was there for 2 years, and yeah, in between that transition, I got to meet. Her name is Vina,
Hmm.
a lady that's from Q4 Fuel, which was my sponsor first, and then became Team CIT's team sponsor. So at that stage, the kickboxing gym was in the transition of moving far away. I couldn't jog all the way to
Yeah.
Silver Lakes, so they came up with a plan to take me to Hatfield and go train at Team CIT, and that's how I got to meet Drickus. So my stars were, yeah, the universe.
Line perfectly.
I was really blessed. I was really blessed to be able to have them also. Now they were helping me with competition fees and clothing and stuff like
Mm.
that, and then they wanted to sponsor a bigger team because they were a massive fan of the sport. And then still remember we were sitting in her car and she said they are looking to sponsor Team CIT, and then I just called out the names of it. I had all the UFC DVDs,
Yeah.
so I would study them. So I was like, okay, Michiel is there, Drickus is there, Leon Maynard is there,
Mm-hmm.
Tumelo Maputa, all these
These are all
guys,
massive names at the time.
massive, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, so you know them? I was like, yeah, of course I know them. And that's basically how their involvement in the team started. And then I was just like a type of add-on. So,
Okay.
you know, Drickus had to give class to me because he needed to impress the new sponsor.
Right.
And
Okay.
unfortunately, they had like this adopted son that needed to train.
Yeah.
So that's basically how the dynamic started, which wasn't the best. But then after that, it slowly developed into, listen, we got something here. We can work with this, and yeah, that's how it began.
What age did you? Because I know you had some like fights at a very early age.
Yeah.
What age did they really? What age was that where they saw like, okay, we got something to work with here. Let's start working towards getting him fights and maybe getting him up the ranks.
So I was 14 when I joined Team CIT, and then at that stage I was only doing grappling tournaments apart, and then I did K1 or light and semi-contact kickboxing. But once I went to CIT, they were like, you're doing full contact. There's no way we're doing this. And after begging my previous gym, because all I wanted to do was full contact. So once I started there, and they were like, no, we don't do that light and semi stuff. We do full. Proper K1. So I was like, okay, let's do K1. And then we started hitting the K1 tournaments, and it went very, very well. 2017, we fought for the SA Championships for K1. We won that. That was still in Durban.
Nice.
And Drickus flew all the way down to corner me. So, I was very grateful for that. And then after winning SA Champs, we already did amateur MMA events. I think my first one I did at 15. And then once I won the SA title in K1, we were like, okay, there's no future in this anymore. They do promise you that a lot. They're like, you're going to go to Glory. You can go to the Wacko Worlds. It costs you more money to go there than
you're going to get out of it.
Exactly. And, at about 16, 17, I was considering doing this for a living. So I was like, we need to
make a choice.
We need to make a choice. And then started transitioning into MMA. At that stage, I started learning wrestling as well. And yeah, from there, we just focused just on MMA fights and building that record.
Did you go to a normal school?
Yeah.
Like, did you go all the way through to matric?
Yeah.
And because you did your first UFC fight, you were 18, right?
18, yes, yeah.
So I'm putting the timeline together now. Your birthday's at the end of the year, so you finished school first and then went to UFC.
Yes,
oh, right,
exactly.
Okay.
So I finished school first and then turned 18, and then actually because of a long injury, and then obviously that was like the start of COVID. There was like a long weird area of, we trained for a year long before I made my debut. So it was just before a few months before I turned 19, and that was basically how we got to work. But once I turned 18, I moved into the pro team, and just that was a fight every day. That was rough.
So how do you get the call? How does the call from UFC come through? Were they in constant contact with your team? Do they just know your team well, and then or do they come watch your fights? Like, how does it go from the amateurs to UFC?
I think it's a bit of both. You cannot join our Team CIT pro team without winning amateur titles.
Okay.
So I won the Fight Star amateur title for juniors, and then defended it, and then won the seniors one as well, defended that as well. And then they were like, okay, now you're good enough to go to the pro team. And then my initiation process was about 2 years. So you always the new guy on the block until there's new guys that come in, and
So what is initiate, if you can, whatever you can share, what does that entail?
Just getting absolutely your ass kicked every single session. If the guys can try and drop you with a body shot, they're going to try and do that. You get absolutely mauled in wrestling sessions. Coaches mean with you. It's just like small stuff like that.
Right.
But,
it's your rite to passage, essentially.
Exactly. You need to pay your dues in order to stay there, or have the right to stay there. So when winning the titles was a massive add-on, and with that, we have great relationship with the EFC. They have been good to myself and Drickus and the whole CIT and most of the guys in South Africa. Without the EFC, we would not be in the position we are today.
Yeah,
So
100%.
and the level of competition wouldn't have been where it is today. So we were in constant chats with them, and once we decided, okay, I am 18, so I'm old enough, then I did my pro license. MMA SA at that stage had a little bit of a problem with that because we were so young, but we basically just refused. They wanted me to go fight at IMAFs at World Champs. We just said no. There's no way. It doesn't make sense. We want to go pro now, and I'm very glad we did that.
Yeah.
So,
How long would you have done IMFs?
I think they wanted
years?
me. Yeah, they wanted me to. So they wanted me to fight, like do their trials, because now you need to first enter the SA team, and we were like, we have two
national
two
titles.
national titles, but okay. So they wanted me to do the trials, and then they wanted me to do like Gauteng champs, and then
work it
African
step to
champs,
step.
and then world champs. You know?
Wow.
So, but Coach Mornay Visser, as most of them, I think he said, "There's no way we're not doing that. It doesn't make sense. Let him fight pro, and let's prove everyone wrong." And yeah, so that was a lot of pressure. That that pro debut was
Yeah,
quite
what was that
exhausting.
like, dude? Because is it a step up in obviously it's a step up in competition.
Yes. Yeah.
Had you fought on close to as big a stage as
So
that before?
yeah, so I think the closest it ever was my title defense for Fight Stars. I think there was about 600 people there,
Okay.
maybe 500, 600 people. Then I got to the debut, and that was also again the same card as Drickus. He was defending his title against Brendan Lazar, and then all of a sudden there were 6,000 people.
Wow.
So it was, I've said this on podcasts before and on interviews before, but in my debut I was so nervous. I really wished I was just in a small car accident. I was just like, not enough to get hurt, just enough not to go to the venue.
Yeah.
So I was the anxiety, and the anxiety got to me right through my amateur career. The anxiety really overwhelmed me through every fight. I remember there were horror stories of throwing up 2 minutes before walking out.
Really?
Yeah, that happened a lot. It's I don't talk about it a lot, but that is something that I went through. Being nauseous, struggling to eat on fight day.
Wow.
And that's just stuff that you need to bite on your teeth and really push through it. And once you make that walk, it's just like dipping in that roller coaster. There's nothing you can do. So just stick to your training, focus on what you have learned right through the camp, and really fall back onto the hard work, and hopefully get the win.
Yeah.
So,
Do you go to like on an autopilot when you make that walk through the curtain, or
usually, so right through amateurs and the start of my pro career, it was very autopilot. It's just like whatever happens. What I've found now is like mentally preparing myself to get used to that feeling of being more present. And that is something that I feel like in my last fight I got right. Like I really, it's a technique by itself. It's like learning a kick. You need to be able to walk out, take in those lights, take in the fans, whether they're booing or cheering for you. You need to be able to take that in and be mentally present. And once I was in the cage, and also you have like these moments where you chat to yourself. In my last fight, I was singing a song, that do 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 do
yeah.
that song from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get that out of my head. But
is this while you're fighting, or is
yeah.
this like in between rounds?
yeah, sometimes in between, like there's like flashes of it. It's
Okay.
like in the start of the fight it happens, or if Bruce Buffer announces it, or it's
Yeah.
very weird. Or I have a conversation with myself during the fight. I think he hit me with the uppercuts, and I just like told myself, "You're such a dumbass. That was from a mile away. You should have seen that. So it's just like having that But having that means you are mentally present in the fight.
Right.
You are chatting to yourself. It's not this chaotic, spanner in a washing machine and you're just like all
Mm.
over the place. Which in the debut, the EFC and UFC debut, both of those were just chaotic.
Mm.
Like it was survival mode. And every single fight, once you get used to the structure, the walkouts, the environment, then you can start almost honing that mentality. Or for
Mm.
me, rather, that's the approach.
So have you started already feeling that you're getting more comfortable?
Mm.
I know you said in one of your post fight, in this last post fight interview as well, you sort of feeling at home there.
Yeah,
But the pre-fight stuff, so just the occasion, we spoke about UFC 285 earlier, like being in front of a large crowd and people asking you questions, like that's things that can make people anxious. Are
of course.
you getting more comfortable with everything as it goes?
100%. The Every single time it gets better, and you actually see going there. Now you're in a foreign country. You're fighting. You're probably gonna be fighting an American,
Yeah.
and if you already do not have the fans backing, but in this fight now we walk out, we hear a chant MSP. We
Oh,
hear people
nice.
chant MSP, and
Yeah.
that's just it's so cool to see not only the UFC fans, but also like the local fans, the guys that are there to watch the fights. They are there to back South African athletes.
Mm.
They in Dricus's fight, you can clearly hear, once the momentum shifted to Dricus, you can hear the fans start losing their minds. So it's stuff like that that is also a very we do not rely on that
Mm.
because obviously it's stuff is not going your way, you're not going to be looking for the chance to
Right.
win the fight, but it's definitely something that helps if it's going well.
Yeah, you're doing something right. I mean, you guys have Dricus has finished all his fights besides the Brad Tavares.
Yes.
And then you've had now, I mean, I count the Contender Series as a UFC fight. I don't know if you do
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I would like to. But unfortunately it does not say UFC. But it's an international fight.
Yes.
So
It's
I
on the
definitely-
UFC platform at
Yes,
least. So
100%.
you two finishes, one decision. But
Yeah.
I mean, even in the decision, again, you handily won that fight, even
Yeah.
with the point being taken away. I mean, there was no question. So your fighting style won, yours and Dricus. I'll clump you together for these two events because you fought
Yeah.
on the same card,
Yeah.
but your fighting style is what makes fans or what draws fans to you.
Yeah.
But then also fans like finishes, man.
Yeah.
And you guys are providing that. So it's if you just keep on like that, I mean the fans will be
Yeah.
in your favor. One thing I will say though is on all the embeddeds, I haven't seen Dricus once.
Yeah.
Why?
So with embeddeds, they only do the guys on the main card, and unfortunately, Dricus has not been on the main card yet. It absolutely breaks my brain. Like Dricus is not. Dricus said obviously it doesn't make sense. He keeps on winning fights, and they just keep on dropping him in the card.
Hmm.
It does not make sense to me. When I saw that, I thought it must be a mistake.
Me too.
It must be a mistake. Hopefully, after this fight, it's either he should headline a fight night, which I think he'll do very well at.
UFC Africa.
Yeah, UFC Africa, he should be the front runner of, obviously, or he should at least be very high on a pay-per-view event on the main card. Embedded stuff they do only the main card fighters
Okay.
for, and that's why he has not been on one. So
Right.
yeah, that's
Crazy,
that's
man, because I
unfortunate.
keep going to every embedded episode and I'm like, show the guys, like,
Yes.
show them,
Yeah,
And I'm always, if you go back on the embeddeds, maybe my comments doesn't rank high up, but like every single embedded, I'm like, third fight in the UFC, you haven't shown them once. Like, what's
Yes.
happening?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
But
yeah.
okay, it makes sense now, I guess, what you're saying. But yeah, it was a bit weird that they put him, they dropped him down the card, and
Yeah.
then put somebody else. I mean, that's all. I don't want to go into politics or anything like that,
Yeah.
but it was a little bit weird. But that being said, at least you guys are getting results and you guys are getting finishes, and that's all that matters.
That's we can chat about social media stats. We can chat about embedded. We can do anything if the UFC are posting full fights on YouTube. That's also great exposure for an athlete. But the best exposure is winning fights. So, and that is something that we are gonna look to keep on doing. And I think that's also, I was not mad. I was more like Jiggers, you should fight for that main card spot. But his focus is solely on winning that fight. And that's something I can just, I have so much respect for him. Is like, he doesn't care where he fights. He knows he's going to be the best in the world. He knows he's going to have a world title one day. So whether he's opening up the card and fighting for a world title or he's doing it later that evening, it does not matter to him. He does not care. The only thing we care about is the results. And yeah, so we
And
try
you're
and block
getting
out
them.
all the other stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
So I just want to. So one thing I think I'd like to know the answer to, and I think a lot of other people would, is you had your title fight with Sindile at
Yeah.
EFC.
Yes.
Was there already a discussion? I know you said you hadn't planned on fighting in the UFC till about 25.
Yeah.
Was there no prior discussion about the Contender Series with
No.
the UFC?
Yeah.
Okay, so that came after you won the title.
After I won the title.
Okay.
Yes. So there were actually no chats about any international opportunity. Nothing. Like,
Wow.
So the plan was to either defend the bantamweight title or go up in weights and fight for the featherweight title. We always joked about going to flyweight, but my body would not allow that.
Yeah.
So that was the plan, was to build a resume that any international organization cannot deny. So they want that guy because of his resume. And then after the title fights, my management and I sent them the full fight. They watched that. They sent it to Sean Shelby. And then that is basically how we got the Contender Series. So
Right.
after watching that fight, they were like, well, we have this guy, Joshua Kim. Will he take the fight? He is 15-1 as an amateur, 5-0 with 5 finishes. Will he take the fight? And obviously, I didn't have any say. Coach was like, yeah, we'll take the fight.
Yeah.
So,
Because
yeah.
it was quite soon after that,
Very
after your EFC title fight. What was it, like 3 weeks or
Yeah,
something?
it was like 2 weeks, and then we.
Really?
Yeah.
Sure. So then they obviously fly you out and
Yes.
you go have the fight. Okay, I don't know how much you're allowed to say or not, but like,
Yeah.
do you have to sign a contract for that, or is it just kind of like you fight and then you win the contract? Like, how does it work?
So, you sign a addendum for that fight. So you sign a contract, like also just like any other fight night, a show and win purse for that specific fight. And then you almost have like a separate contract where if you win a contract with the UFC, this is what your contract will
Right.
look like going forward. And then you just hope you get that one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that actually you get a show and a win for being on the Contender Series.
Yeah.
That's very
I
cool.
don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but yeah.
Look, find out, and if you're not allowed to, we'll cut it out. So don't worry.
But also, yeah, that's fine.
You don't want to. I don't know. You don't want to be on the UFC's
They
bad
gave me 2 packets of knickknacks and a Coke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got you. And from the EFC side, so this is also another thing, because a lot of people are going. It's a great platform, obviously, but if you're signed to a contract for the EFC, and the UFC, UAE Warriors, whoever comes knocking, do they have to buy you out of your EFC contract, or how does that whole situation
I'm
work?
guessing it works differently with everyone, depending on what their contract says. But in my experience, the EFC has been very accommodating with opportunities that come up. So they will sometimes work with the athletes to try and get them opportunities elsewhere, or they will have maybe buyout clauses. I've heard of them doing that as well, or they'll have other stipulations of that. But in my personal experience, once we got the opportunity to go to the Contender Series, we had open discussion with the EFC, and we were like, this, we cannot
You
pass
can't
this
pass it up, no.
And thankful to them, they've never been stingy in that way. So they were like, they've been massive supporters of both Jiggers and my career, and so it was easy working with them going forward.
No, most definitely. I still see Graham always posting about you guys. And just nothing but support. I mean, it's good to see, because like you said, the last thing you want is somebody to hold you back and be like, you're alpha, you got a contract that's ironclad, like can't go anywhere. And then, okay, so once you got to Vegas, what was it like the first time you went? I mean, what I know you spoke about the nerves and that kind of thing, but like getting into Octagon now, from a hexagon to Octagon.
Yeah.
When you started fighting with him, what was the goal for, like, what was the difference in level of competition, if
Massive.
any, really?
Yeah, no, it was really, especially him.
Mm,
You know, Joshua Kim is he's really good.
mm,
On his feet, he was so lucid. He was dynamic. You know, it looked like he's been a professional for years,
mm,
and we were just like biting down on mouth guard, and we were just like focused on what we want to do. We saw footage. We knew what he was able to do.
mm,
We just knew that we can slowly but surely pick him apart, pick him apart, pick him apart. And there were a few moments. You know, I lost the first round. I know that.
mhm,
I'm generally a very slow starter, and then we'll pick up the pace. After the first round, my coach said you need to start pressing pace, and we did that. We did not, give a lot of leg room for him to work his stuff.
mhm,
We really focused on landing efficient kicks, landing boxing, and then there were a few exchanges where we landed quite massively in that second round.
mm.
And then I could see in his facial expression just something
Slowly.
changed. And then we're like, okay, we are working. And so we have one round left. After that second round, I asked coach, do I take him down and steal the third round just to get the win? And he's like, no, we are here to get a contract. You need to impress them.
Mm.
You are not here to lie on top of a guy. You need to knock him out. And I was like, sure, okay. I had to, Coach Mornay Visser is the person I trust the most.
Mm.
And so I was just like, sir, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Let's go out there. Started again, just pressing forward. And we have number combos. So we have 1 to 16. So we have 16 combos that we know like clockwork.
Mm.
It's like coach can control us like a remote control.
Right.
So if he shouts one, we know exactly what that is, 14, 15. And then we have like, I think 6 other combos that have names. So we have 16 numbers, 6 names, and we mix those up. And coach was calling, going forward, he was calling ones, he was calling tens, and the stuff just kept on landing. And then just before the exchange, he just said press forward, and then that's how the finish happened.
Yeah, it was spectacular, man. That was it was early hours of the morning, but
yeah.
I still remember watching that, and then Dana White's reaction afterwards was just. When did you from there then get to go speak to Dana White the first time? Because
So after the fight, there were still 2 more fights after mine, and then they announced the contract winners. After the contract winners, we got to chat to him, and that was great. And my interview after that, so there's a video of where the athletes that won the contracts basically stand in a line and get to meet him. So we quickly chat there, but then we also chatted after his interview. So he had an interview, and I was straight after him, and got to chat to him again. And then he ran into like a little storage unit, and he gave me a bottle of his Hollerhead whiskey, and just said, congratulations with the fight. So it was surreal.
And he nicknamed you the Future.
Yeah,
And no pressure,
no pressure. Yeah, there's a few guys that have named themselves that in the UFC. So it's kind of special that I got that from someone else.
Yeah.
And especially
From
the
the
boss, from the boss man.
Yeah.
But we're gonna stick to MSP for now.
Okay, MSP.
Yeah.
And just with Dana, I mean, do you just see him at the events? How regularly do you get to talk to him, or are you more in touch with like other people in the UFC?
Yeah, you don't always get to chat to him. He's a busy man, as you can believe.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of employees that work for the UFC. So you get to see like your regulars that you chat to almost daily. Someone that I've got to know very well, and I'm very fortunate for his involvement as well, as Charles Stoll. He's the head dietitian for the UFC, and he's absolutely amazing. So we chat a lot about just that in-week diet. I have a great dietitian. She's sitting right there. She helps me for the first 8 to 10 weeks, and then that last week Charles helps me with the weight cuts and the diet for being very specific for the performance of the night. So you get to meet all these guys that are not necessarily the big bosses, not the Dana White, Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, Hunter
Mm-hmm.
Campbell, but you see them at weigh-ins and you see them at fight nights as well.
Mm. And what is your? I mean, how much do you walk around at? When do you? What weight do you start your cut at?
So I walk around at usually at about 73 kilos,
Okay.
72, 73. I'll try and get that a little bit lower this time around and just check how the cut goes.
Mm.
And then usually we diet down until about 69, 68.
Okay.
Then we start the loading process. The loading gets it down till about 66, and then we cut the rest evening before weigh-ins.
Mm. What is it in kilograms? The 135 pound.
Is 61.3.
61.3. Okay, so you'll drop quite a bit in that loading and yeah.
Yeah, so it gets quite intense.
Yeah. And what do you? I mean, I've done water drops and things like that before. I've asked a couple of fighters as well before about how they feel. Like, how do you? I mean, obviously you're trying to perform, and then you've also got media day stuff you've got to do, and you feel like you've also got your flight. Like, it must be quite a tricky process. I mean, it's a straightforward process in theory.
Yeah.
But now like you're sitting at the press conference. I mean, I was saying to you like earlier, like I was loading. I'm not doing it anymore, luckily.
Yeah.
But like you're sweating. You need to go pee every 5 minutes.
Yes.
Like when you're sitting at these media days, like, and you're hungry and you're probably tired, like it must be a tricky thing to maneuver, going into, especially in fight week when things start to ramp up.
It is very hard. I think that's why I have respect for every fighter that cuts weight. It is really to have also a positive, to stay positive in fight week, especially if you're cutting a lot, is very hard. But you are so focused on the job at hand. My biggest stress in fight week is just I never want to miss weight, and I never have. Amateurs, whether it's grappling, kickboxing, amateur MMA, professional MMA, we've always come up, and
On
every
weight.
single time 135, not 136. We've championship weight. We want to be 135. So we've done that. I'm very fortunate. The last cut was the easiest by far. I felt obviously you are depleted. You are walking around at 12 to 13 kilos lower than you usually do. So you are a dead man walking, but just mentally I was solid. I was there. I was locked in and I was so ready to get onto the scale. And then after that, the job continues. You focus on getting your food digestive enzymes, getting your fluids back. Then you need to time your first meal. You need to time your second meal. You need to time your third meal. So it's super calculated. And again, I could not have done that without the amazing guys that we have around us. So yeah.
So just on weight, we touched on a little bit earlier. Your last opponent, Mana Martinez, missed weight.
Yeah.
And by 2 pounds, so doesn't matter, pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, whatever. How long is it between, like, how long of a decision does it take? Like, I mean, do they come to you straight away and be like, okay, Cameron, he's not going to make weight, what do you want to do? Or do they just say, okay, we're going to go forward with the fight, here's his purse? Like, how does that whole story work?
Yeah, so usually how it happened with me is, so I just want to say that because I got it right 100%. I saw him fight week. He walked past me. I think he went to go do admin or stuff. He walked past me. And as I saw him in fight week, that was about 2 or 3 days before weigh-in, I looked back to my coach and I said, he's not making weight. Like, I just had
Could you just see?
He was not making weight.
Yeah.
Then the evening before the weigh-ins, you don't sleep a lot because you're so depleted, but you take melatonin and you have weird dreams and stuff. So I, again, had a dream he's not making weight. So I just kept on telling coaches, like, he's not making weight. And then sure enough, he missed weight so his allowance is 136 pounds. He got in at 137. And so by that time we were already back at the hotel, and I got a call from, I got a call from Henny, one of my coaches. And he said, He did not make weight. I was like, I told
Told
you,
you.
I told you, he's not making weight. And it was like, we are going ahead with the fights. And I was like, yeah, of course we are. There's no
Mm,
question. We came all this way. We cut all this weight. There's no way. Like
mm.
he could have been 4.5 pounds overweight. He could have been 8 pounds overweight. We would have taken the fight. And and then obviously you get a cut. The weight cut is such a massive part of the sport, and it's it's just he needs to pay his dues for not making weights.
No,
So
100%, man. It's
yeah,
an obligation you've got to do. It's part of being a
yeah,
professional.
it's
So
like a pit stop in F1. If you mess that up, you mess up your race. So yeah,
exactly. And then from their side, where I mean, there's not really much that they can do. They're just kind
uh,
of like, well, okay, let's fight, and
yeah,
here's.
yeah. If they miss weight, guessing, just I'm not sure if that's true, but uh, the UFC, they don't mess around, and they do not waste their time with guys that do stuff like that.
Yeah,
So if he would have missed weight and we accepted the fight, and he then turns the fight down, I'm pretty sure he would have been cut.
yeah.
So that's
That wouldn't have
just
been wise.
that would have not been smart. So
Yeah. And tell me, so I saw leading up to the fight, you and Dricus both went on the Nelk podcast,
yes,
and you're always talking about partying. And then I saw a story about them with Dricus, but you had gotten sick or something.
yeah.
What happened there?
Always after fights, I it's the adrenaline dump. It's the I do not know if it's just like the cut or the reload, or my body is peaking at
Mm-hmm.
fight night, and that's the highest it goes. So after that, my body crashes immediately. I get sick. I was actually on antibiotics now again.
Really?
Yeah, I get so sick after fights. So, and I think it has to do a lot with cutting weights,
Mm.
traveling back to South Africa. Once I come back here, I'm pretty depleted. So usually I need to try and manage that as well. But
Mm.
after the fight, I was just like man down. So I was
Really?
just like, Jikkers, Kair Layer, you have to take the mantle for
Yeah.
me. I'll catch up later.
Jeez, man, I didn't
Yeah.
know that. That was so every single fight it's
Yeah,
just
most of the fights, I'm man down. And also, we wanted to go out with them. I just wanted to be in the hotel room, to be honest. I
really.
wanted to hide away, I wanted to order room service, have a few ribs, and pass out on the
Mm.
on the bed. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy with little. So yeah,
Nice.
that's what I did.
And obviously in Las Vegas in particular, there's a lot of good fast food joints. Did you guys get to try
Correct.
any of the?
Yeah. So we last time we had In and Out. That was great.
I'm so
Um,
jealous, dude.
yeah, it's really cool. Taco Bell,
Mm.
highly rated. That was sick. The thing I wanted the most, and I got it, and I was very happy, was Raising Cane's.
Yeah.
They have like a secret sauce,
Yes.
and they give you like a garlic bread and fried chicken and chips, and
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, so I'll be having Raising Cane's again, but I have a like Chick-fil-A. I want to still try. I've had Chipotle, that was good.
Mm.
Apparently Shake Shack is also
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
My training partners had it a few times. I did not. So there's a few that we still need to hit.
There's too many options,
Yeah.
dude. There's also the Heart Attack Grill. There's
Yes.
Five Guys.
Five Guys, White Castle.
Yes.
Apparently that's also good.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's really a lot.
I just know I could never live in America because I would be the fattest person alive, dude. Seriously, like that's my weakness.
I also need to try and really fight. Even like being here, because I must say, South African food, amazing.
Mm.
If it's deep fried, the Americans do it very well.
Yeah.
Like our normal, like our meats, our normal food is absolutely, you can't compare it with
Mm.
anything else. And I've only been to the States, but it's really, being here is also a challenge.
Mhm.
Not getting too fat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very fortunate.
What's your go-to here in South Africa then?
Eggs Benedicts.
Yeah.
That's like with hollandaise sauce.
Yeah.
I made a comment. I tweeted something about like, after fights, I want hollandaise sauce on everything.
Mm.
And people were not, they were like, what? That makes no sense. But really, hollandaise sauce, Eggs Benedict is like my top.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I like to just have try different stuff as well.
Mm.
I'm not a picky eater, so I'll try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird also when you're cutting weight. Like, I don't know if it happens to you as well as like, do your what you crave
Weird.
changes completely. Like, I joked with my wife when I was doing competitions, like, it's like being pregnant almost.
Yes,
Because
100%.
when my sister was pregnant, she started craving weird
Yeah.
stuff as well.
The
So like the
people
hollandaise thing, like I can fully understand.
the people closest to me know I cut weight because I start sending them food videos
All
as
right.
well. But a
Yeah.
lot of them.
Yeah.
You know, so I get weird. I'm pretty lactose intolerant as well, so I try and stay away from milk products. But ice cream.
Yeah.
I get such a craving for ice cream in fight camp.
Mm.
And yeah, I get like quite weird ice cream. Deep fried chicken is something I crave quite a
And you'll
lot.
never ever really crave it when
Not
you're not cutting weight.
when I'm eating now, I have normal stuff. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like in fight week, I go through those recipes on
Yeah.
Instagram.
And you start living through the people that are eating it on the videos.
Exactly.
You should try next time if you can. It's a lot though. It's Ben and Jerry's. I don't know if
Ben
you've
and
tried it.
Jerry's, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard about it, but
Dude, it's
yeah.
like the most over the top. Like there was one flavor when I lived in Bahrain, I got to try it finally. It was
Yeah.
the closest thing to America, and it's called Anything But the Cow.
Okay.
Or, well, anything but that, and it's got a picture of a cow.
Yeah.
And it's literally like Reese's cupcakes, Reese's pieces, like white chocolate, dark chocolate, like all these chocolate pieces, and then it's like a mixture of milk, chocolate ice cream and normal ice cream.
Oh, yeah, that's
And then the other one was like caramel. Dude, I'm getting so excited now. Sorry, but like it was like a caramel ice cream with like treat in the middle, like caramel down the core.
yeah. Yeah,
And
that
it was
sounds
like
amazing.
it's so over the top.
Yeah.
But it just works.
There's a Hershey shop and a Reese's shop on the Vegas Strip, and that was
Mm.
so those shops are in the hotel we're staying at.
Oh wow.
And I was just like eyeing those things, and there's s'mores and stuff, and I was just like, fight week, I'm there. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting that. I'm making a list, and then once you make weight and you reload, then you're like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, you don't want to
So,
rush into it because
yeah.
then you'll eat everything. Dude.
Yeah.
You won't stop.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So going forward now, I know you said before. So you fought in Vegas, including the Contender Series 3 times.
Yes.
You said you wanted to try Texas. I don't know if
Yes.
the UFC's got plans for a Texas card or not.
Yeah, it's just very soon, but they'll probably have one. End of March is Texas,
Actually,
and
that's way too soon.
yeah, that's way too soon. I've heard somewhere in May they have a Swedish one that's quite cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I don't think the possibilities of that happening is close to zero, but you never know. So end of May maybe. June, July is International Fight Week. That's
Mhm.
again in Vegas.
Yeah.
So those are basically the timelines we're looking at. But I would like to fight somewhere else as well, just to experience another part of the States or another country. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're there to do a job. So whether that's the backyard of Stellenbosch or the streets of Vegas, it doesn't matter.
And what about if you know something that you're not allowed to say again, please don't say it. But
Okay.
UFC Africa. I mean, what are your thoughts about something like that happening? Do you think it will happen? I
Well,
mean, Dana White said it will happen.
Yes, yeah, and if he says that, that's the only thing we know. What the public knows is what we know. It's if he says if their timeline is 2 years, expect it to happen within 2 years. It's they won't go past that. It will happen within that. And I think also a massive aspect that I wasn't thinking of that he actually mentioned in his interview was the fact that they want to build a PI. And that's also just adding motivation to a African card and an African event. And we're gonna keep on saying it. It would be very stupid to not do it in South Africa.
100%.
There's no other country that will be able to host it. Our tourism is the best. Our infrastructure is the best, and you have two of the best South African fighters in the world.
The two best
Yeah,
South African
so-
in the world. I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know if you know this, or if this matters even, but you now with your win, you're in a select 3 from South Africa that have 2 UFC wins.
Wow, that's sick.
So
Yeah, that's cool.
there's you, Drickus, and Don Match have 2 UFC wins.
That is
That I don't know if that means anything,
That
but I was
is-
just thinking about it today. I mean,
that-
that the magnitude of that, dude,
Yeah.
at 22 years old, it's
that's absolutely amazing. I still after the last fight as well, coming back and people are like, can you believe what you guys are doing? And it's just like sometimes we still pinch ourselves, you know. It's just like we are so fortunate to be able to be in this position, and just like hearing stuff like that is very cool because it is. And I think that's why, you know, Drickus mentioned we are truly African fighters, and I back his statement 100%. And I think people should just realize the sport of MMA is super hard. It's a hard sport to do, just as a sport. It's very hard. Now try and do that for a living. That is quite intense. Trying to pay your bills by doing MMA, that's quite a daunting task.
Yeah.
Now try and do that at the highest level of the UFC. That is
That's
even
yeah.
worse. Now try and do that out of Africa.
Yeah.
You know, the only reason why we say that is we take pride in that. We really take pride in having not the easy road to that and still being able to compete there. So I want UFC to Africa to happen, and maybe it happens here close to where we are now, you know, Cape
I
Town.
think it makes sense, dude. I'm
Yeah.
not just saying that because we're
Cape
from
Town-
Cape Town, but the tourism aspect, it's
100%. Cape Town makes sense if they can build a roof on one of these stadiums.
right.
Because I don't think Boss Dana will do it in the open air.
Nah.
You know, and now as a Pretoria fan and native,
Yeah.
I think, you know, Sun Arena, it's very small for what they usually do, but if they can fit 10,000 people in there, they'll make it 10,000 select tickets, and they'll make it super exclusive, and that makes sense because Sun Arena is closed, and there's also infrastructure to help maintain the masses that will come here. So
yeah, it's the only limiting factor I think for Cape Town not to get it is having a closed
but you know,
stadium.
they in COVID they built Fight Island,
Right.
so if they really want to come to Africa, they'll make a plan.
Yeah, you never know what that PI looks like, dude.
That
I mean,
PI could look insane as well.
yeah,
you
I
know,
think it's
so-
good. I mean, I think again, like you guys maybe sometimes you live in the moment, you know, but I think it will become clear once you guys are further into your career exactly what you're doing, because there are people that have been to the UFC before and varying success. But I mean, you guys are taking it to a whole new level, and I mean, I'm sure you'll see like the country is behind you in every single fight.
Yeah,
and
of
it's just
course.
going to keep growing and growing and growing. And you know, when I saw a video of Drickus getting back to Tamba the other day, and I was thinking to myself, and the same for you, for both of you, it's like soon when you guys have a UFC title, that little area in Tamba is going to be packed with people.
Yeah,
It's going to be like the Springboks winning the World Cup.
yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, you guys again in like 10, 15 years, when there's how many fighters that have gone to the UFC through your program, through Versus, then, you know, maybe UFC, maybe you guys start a pro promotion, whatever. I mean, seeing someone else do it
yeah,
is going to be a big thing. I mean, Conor McGregor said when he started, his parents were like, who's doing it from Ireland?
Yeah.
There was no one for him to point to.
Yes, exactly.
Now they've got the two of you.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, I think it's going to become apparent when you guys, maybe later in if it isn't already apparent, what you guys are
100%.
doing.
Yeah, no, I think if there's one thing that we can show now, and especially just we did not do this alone. You know, it's I got asked this the other day. You know, what does coach's role play? You know, Coach Mornay Visser, and I would not be in this position if it wasn't for him. And Drickus wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for him. So, you know, having guys like Coach Mornay Visser, Henny Engelbrecht, you know, our strength and conditioning coach, Scotty McIntosh, these are the guys that are behind the scenes. We are the front runners. We do the easy part of fighting for 15 minutes, but it's just like there's so much work that goes into that at the back end of it. And I think anyone that wants to make a success in the sport, especially like the young kids coming up now, that's what we get to see in the kids program and at the amateur level at CIT. You see these guys working their asses off and almost hunting those pros as well, and that's also a massive motivation for us. We need to we need to keep up with the momentum, otherwise these kids are gonna you know they're gonna catch us. So it's just we have a great there's so much momentum for the team, and you know we are the front runners of that, and that's I think we take a lot of pride in that. And I really hope that we can headline. I think if they do it in the next year or two, I'll probably headline the prelim card of UFC Africa.
You never know.
Maybe open up the main card,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, Jikus is going to be up there.
No, most
Yeah.
definitely. And just one more thing I'll say, about your team, and from what I've seen, I obviously don't know you guys that intimately, but just talking to you and seeing the way you answer questions at the press conferences and things like that is like your head is screwed on right.
Yeah.
Both you and Rikus.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be so easy for both of you to get such big heads and just think you're like, I don't know, the coolest people in the world.
Yeah.
And you're too cool for certain things, and you've now made it and just rest on your laurels. But I can see you guys are still both. I mean, you've got a bigger picture going ahead.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most important things. Is
it's a massive asset knowing that once that interview is done, your coach is going to kick your ass if you said something wrong as well.
Yeah.
So we have guys keeping us in check, which helps.
Nah, that's awesome,
Yeah.
man. Okay, so we asked you guys at home, both on my Instagram and my Facebook, to post fan questions for Cameron. So I'm going to read a couple of them out. So thank you for your fan questions. The first question is from Sandown Physiotherapists. And the question is, who's your dream opponent, past or present? Especially weight is not an issue. So it can be anyone from any weight class, past or present.
Oh, that's sick. Okay, that's a very cool question. GSP, 100%.
GSP.
That's the guy I look up to most. So if weight wasn't a question, that's the person I would want to face. I think I would have to do a lot of work, but it's just like that's the guy it would be a massive honor to share the cage with him. Yeah.
Is it because of the challenge that he poses? I mean, he's got 0 weak points.
Yeah.
And he adapts so well to the fight. Or...
Yeah, 100%. It's his technical ability, and also just I think the thing I look up to him the most is just he's super dynamic, not only in his fights but in his preparations. He was super creative in having like these weird ways of preparing for fights, incorporating gymnastics, water training. He's an athlete first, and then he was a fighter. He was focused on human optimization. He was focused on being the best version of himself, and even now being retired, you can still I follow him in depth. He does these weird diets, he does cold plunge, he does all these aspects of health and fitness and mental training that is really inspiring. So sometimes I'm like, okay, this is weird, I will not waste my time with this, but that's the thing I look up to the most of him, and just like his mentality of approaching fights and being super honest, saying he hates fighting, but he still did it at the highest level because he worked hard, he was professional, he focused on the job at hand. That's something I look up to. So sharing the cage with him would be great.
GSP.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to segue into my next question. I just want to actually find it now.
Yeah, and also just sorry on that, GSP fighting MSP, that's like it has a good ring to it. It's like take my money now. Yeah,
exactly. That's actually the next question. So I'm gonna add to this question is I just need to find it now because I want to give the user. Okay, sorry to the user. I will get your name on the screen. Somebody asked, where did the name MSP come from?
Yeah. So the name MSP was, so Henny Engelbrecht, he is my mental coach. He's also one of my head training partners, and he's kind of our team manager. It's like a very weird dynamic. It's a very weird dynamic. I think if there's one guy you should have on the podcast, it's him. His story of how he got into this is very weird. He has his master's in theology. He's a minister.
Wow.
He's like in the ministry. I don't know, doemini. I don't know what you call that in English. He's not a pastor.
Not a pastor.
No, not a pastor. He's like
pastor, reverend, priest.
Ordained priest, pastor. I don't know.
Produces saying pastor.
He's a doemini.
Right.
So,
right.
And well, he was one. Now he's focused on
helping you guys,
just keeping the kids at bay.
Okay.
So it's just weird. But he actually, as a joke, started giving me the nickname MSP, and we just stuck with it.
Is it a reference to GSP? And then obviously we've got a South African term
Yes,
for it. Is
we
it a
have.
combination of the two?
Yeah, so it's like for everyone that asks me, including like, it's it's reference to GSP was a happy accident.
Okay.
Then we have the Afrikaans,
Yeah.
the great Afrikaans meaning for
Yeah.
it, and then most people know it as most savage player.
Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, the next question is so from Mario De Silva says, "Congratulations on a fantastic performance. Do you think MMA would be better without these drastic and sometimes dangerous weight cuts?"
Great question again. Yes, the sport will be much. I think you'll see better fights, better performances. I think you'll see a safer sport if weight cut wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it all started with the one guy that thought about cutting weight, so now everyone does it. So,
Mm,
um, I think if they can have a safe way of implementing no weight cuts and making sure that the guys are on an even playing field,
mm,
um, that would be the best way going forward for the sport. But then again, like the flip of that is like there's such a sweet science behind that, behind having the perfect weight cut, perfect reload, perfect performance after that,
mm.
because that's quite a big fight. You're fighting that scale before you fight your opponent.
Yeah.
So um, I would like to see a sport without it, just because I cut so much weight.
Mm,
So obviously I'm biased, but I think at the end of the day, it will be better for all the athletes involved.
mm.
Yeah.
100%. Okay, let's see if we got time for a couple more. Let's get one. Um, so the last one I think we'll have time for. This one comes from Carl Kelsel. On Instagram, he said, "Which UFC fighter do you take the most inspiration from with regards to your fighting style?"
That's a good question. Um, you're the most. It's very hard. There's guys like Max Holloway, technically super sound and technically absolutely amazing. Then there are guys, obviously John Jones, GSP are the guys that I look up to the most. Conor McGregor, ain't no denying. You can say what you want to about his antics and his personality, but fighting style for
Mm.
what he did in his
Especially at featherweight.
era, yeah,
Mm.
it's absolutely amazing. Um, I'm forgetting a few, but we do not try and emulate one person. And I think we've shown, especially now, we've shown that we have quite a unique style
Mm-hmm.
coming out of South Africa and out of Team CIT.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to try and just like even just refine that craft even more. But I would say guys like GSP, even though like he's very wrestling based. Max Holloway with his crisp boxing stand up. I'm kick heavy,
Mm-hmm.
so you know I'm an absolute massive fan of Jose Aldo. I
Mm-hmm.
think Edson Barbosa, the king of kicks,
Yeah.
he's someone that I studied quite a lot, going forward. So it's very hard. I can build a hybrid fighter of the guys that I looked up to, but there
Mm.
wasn't one specific guy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, your guys' style is unique, and it's maybe going to become a token, like people can be like, "Oh, the South African style,"
Yes.
and
I hope
that would
so.
be
That would
that
be
would be the
sick.
biggest compliment.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about the Dagestani wrestling.
Yeah.
I don't know what the South African
The
version would
South
be. South
African
African left hook.
Farkart.
Farkart, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that's for sure is the South African power. That's already there. I mean,
Yeah.
people are already talking about that. So
100%.
it's already some
I'm just
distinguishing
glad you're saying
factors.
that because I know Coach Henny is going to be watching this and he says I have no power. So we have
Uh,
power now.
Yeah, people are saying that. Don't take my word for it.
Yeah.
Just listen to all the people that are in the know in the UFC. So, no, awesome, Cameron. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you for having
And
me.
yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here. And yeah, just know I don't speak for all of South Africa, but I mean, like everybody that I know that watches UFC, that follows you guys, is incredibly proud and super, super excited to see what comes in the future. So
Thank you so
we'll
much.
be
Yeah.
watching.
And I'm very fortunate to have the whole of South Africa backing us. Sometimes we miss phone calls, we miss messages and comments and stuff like that. We try and get to most, but we can't always. But we are very fortunate to be able to do this and know that we have the backing of a whole country that's